Hello, Healing Overflow family. Welcome back to Healing Overflow with Dr. Toy. I'm Dr. Toy, your host. This is your social work podcast here at the University of Pittsburgh. But you know what? Y'all are listening and watching all over the world. I got some mail, not like snail mail, but email all the way from Kenya. That was so exciting. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Keep sharing, y'all. Well, you know we have the segment Ask a Therapist. That's me again. Ask a Therapist segment. That's anytime, anywhere. Click that link down below and take the real short survey. You don't even have to leave your name. If you do leave your name or if you leave your email address, you have an opportunity to win a Starbucks gift card. But write in, you can email me directly at toyaj@pitt.edu or click down here anonymously and ask your question. I'm happy to answer it. I actually really love answering it. Y'all are coming up with some wonderful questions. I'm probably going to have to do another Ask a Therapist segment because I always get a lot of questions. But keep asking them and I'll keep answering them. I love it. Keep sharing, keep watching. Y'all are such a support and I appreciate it. Okay, I got to get past all that because I am excited. Y'all know I'm always excited about my guests because I have the best guest. Period, point blank. So I have Sharise Nance here today. She's an LCSW, y'all, and EMDR certified, and the CCTP, you're going to tell me what that is because it's fancy pants. But she's an evidence-based compassion fatigue expert. I want to know all about that, but I've been hearing about the work that Sharise has been doing, and I needed to get her in here and talk about all of the beautiful things that she's doing in the city, but all the things that she's doing in people's lives. So I want y'all to put your hands together for my guest, and we're going to hear it too. It's going to be a roaring, loud crowd for Sharise Nance. You hear it?
Yes,
screaming, girl.
I feel the love. I feel the love. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying yes, clearing your schedule, and coming down here. It's been a long time coming. We have connected in just so many positive ways, and I've really just looked on the work that you're doing and really admired you as a social worker. Like, look at her go. Like, this is
likewise.
This is the stuff I'm talking about, like social work magic. So I want to dig right in there. There's so much that we can talk about. First of all, y'all got to check out the website because the website was beautiful. I don't know who did it, but it's so professional and lovely looking, and the pictures are beautiful. So it's www.sharisenance.com. Click right below. You know I always have that link ready for you. Check out the website. There's so many things that this girl's so busy. We can't even cover it all, but we're going to try.
Yes.
I really had you on because, there's times in the semester, there's times in folks' lives, because I have students watching, but I have y'all watching out there in the world, that we get tired. Like I remember my grandma saying, I'm tired of being tired, and when you are tired from the inside out, it's beyond fatigue. And so when I saw, oh wait, you're a compassion fatigue expert, we need this self-care, we need this knowledge that you're going to share today just to help us get through those struggle bus moments. So first of all, talk about your journey. I love that you're an LCSW. We are LCSWs.
LCSW crew. Gang.
Tell us about that journey. A lot of social work prospect students, a lot of social work students want to know like how you became a social worker, and just talk about that journey. Just talk about
I love talking about that journey. So I never thought that I was going to be a social worker. When I always knew I wanted to help in some capacity, I wanted to be a child psychologist. When I graduated from high school and we walked out in our prom lineup and they introduced me, Sharise, Hemby at the time, that's my maiden name, she's going to be a child psychologist. But once I started doing internships and doing the work, I'm like, that's not enough. I need to impact on a larger scale. What can help me do that? And so I started talking to some of my colleagues, and people were saying social work. My supervisor at the time was an MSW, and it just seemed so far out of reach. I'm like, a master's degree? Do I have it in me to go back to school and get a master's degree? Because my bachelor's degree is in psychology. I went to IUP. And so while I was working full-time for CYF, Children, Youth, and Families, I decided to go back and get my master's degree in social work.
Grab it up.
Yeah, and I have family members who thought I was out of my mind, or what are you doing? Social workers don't make any money. And my dad was joking, like, the bank isn't going to be open forever. You better get in a profession that can pay you. And I'm like, but I really want to do this. I just feel connected to it. There's something about it. And it didn't disappoint. The program, and this was back in 2003, the program was incredible. I had some great professors. They were very supportive. Shout out to Dr. Kalan. She was amazing, helped us with the genograms, got us thinking structurally and systematically. So much support. I went for school social work at the time because that's what I wanted to do, be a homeschool visitor. And I took the exam, the LSW exam, and I failed it the first time. I'm not the best test taker. I was heartbroken. I failed it by 2 points, locked myself in a room for the rest of the day. It was horrible.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
hard.
My parents were concerned. I'm like, I'll be okay. I just need a moment. And I took it a second time, same result, and I was like, I need to get some distance from it. I took some distance from it, got some experience, and the third time I passed it with flying colors.
Flying colors.
Yeah.
You just had to get your mind.
I did. And once I took that LSW exam, it opened up some doors. And I want to, I guess, rewind a little bit. Before I took that exam and I had my MSW, I was working as a classroom therapist at a school in Washington County. It's no longer there. We were laid off. All of the classroom therapists were laid off when we were driving home. It was horrible. It was horrible. I had never been laid off, and there was a part of me that was relieved, but then it's like, what am I going to do? I don't got no job. I got bills and student loans.
Right.
Goodness, this is terrible.
And
fortunately, I had a part-time job working as a mobile therapist doing wraparound. I'm like, this is an opportunity to get prepared for this test because there's something else for me. And so I had the space and the time and the capacity to prepare for that test, and I passed it, and I went back to my old job as a supervising family-based clinician. So that was and that's when my now business partner tests at Hand in Hand Counseling, we started talking about a private practice.
Nice.
And then we started, just talking to our mentors and picking people's brains and getting the information that we needed, and decided that we were going to open up this practice.
Wow. How long have you had to practice now?
2013.
Wow.
2013, we opened that practice, and there weren't a lot of private practitioners back then. I have to say, Erica was a huge support back then.
Erica Givner? Shout out to Erica Givner.
She was a huge support. She showed us a lot of things. She actually did my supervision so that I could get my LCSW, because back then I didn't realize how important an LCSW would be if I was going to take the mental health track. So I was able to do that, and I'll tell you, when I took that test the first time, I did not pass. It's something about me and tests the first time. It's like I got to get my feet wet, and it's not that I don't know the information, it's that test anxiety. And there was so much going on at that time. We were planning a wedding, and I was still working full time. This practice was new, and I'm like, but I have to get the C. I want to have the C when I get married. Like, there was just, I had my mind made up about what I wanted to do, but it wasn't the time. So I took some space from it. And then the next year, I took it and I passed it. So it's always so like the lesson. I need some space instead of just trying to force it and rush it. And I was excited because I knew the doors that it would open.
So this is, thank you for being so transparent.
Yeah.
This is beautiful, because a lot of folks don't talk about, I passed it. They're always saying I passed it. They don't talk about failing it.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that fail it. It's a very challenging exam.
It is.
But more challenging in your mind.
Yes.
You know the information.
You know the information.
You're just so scared of it. It's really big. It's puffed up to be huge,
Yeah.
but it's just a test. And you can retake it and you can pass it, but there's a lot of folks that pass it if they get some coaching and they learn how to breathe through it. And you really learn how to answer the questions, not necessarily the content.
Yes.
Because you know
It's
the content,
how.
it's how. It's tricky. You have to think about what would NASW want me to say here. What did the book say?
Yep.
And that is really important. That's something that you learn. So students here at the University of Pittsburgh in the School of Social Work can use our Career Center, and they prep you and help you. And I did use that when I took my test. And I don't love tests either, but it's like, you will pass, and you got to go in there saying you will pass. Yeah. We're so happy that you did, because all of the things that you're doing and all the doors that open because you have the LSW and the LCSW, you wouldn't be able to do without it. And so, like, your own practice is wonderful, and I know it's thriving. I refer people there. Thank you. Absolutely. And I think it's wonderful. You have a great team. So I'm glad that you persevered and continued on that road. Tell me, how did you become a compassion fatigue expert? Where did that come from? Where did the passion for that topic come from?
So based on my own experiences, when I was in graduate school in Pitt, I was still working full-time, and I was doing a part-time internship. So there was just a lot going on. Part-time internship, taking classes and working full-time, and I was exhausted. Exhausted from the work, the excessive workloads, exhausted from hearing the stories and the experiences, and just tired. And so I didn't know what it was that I was feeling, because at that time it wasn't talked about when we were in school. Right. And so I just pushed through it, because that's what we were taught to do. My grandmother even reminded me, oh, honey, I did similar things with 2 babies and a husband and a business and a job. And I'm like, okay, Grandma.
Right.
So I'm not trying to challenge Grandma. And so I just, I kept chugging along, but that feeling didn't go away. And I remember I think it might have been my first full-time job when I graduated with my MSW. I went to a training just on trauma, just to get a refresher on trauma, as I was seeing more of it in my work. And the facilitator started talking about compassion fatigue and secondary trauma. I'm like, oh my God, why is nobody talking about this more? This is exactly what I'm feeling. It just felt, I felt so validated, so seen, because there would be times where I thought, oh, I'm just making this up in my mind. No, none of my other colleagues are talking about this. And I'm like, okay. So I felt seen. I didn't do anything with it at the time. And when I was ready to write my second book, my cousin, who is just like really good at marketing, been a great mentor, cuz don't write a second book until you have a niche. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to talk about self-care. Well, that's great, but everybody's talking about it. How are you going to separate yourself to truly pour into your profession? And so I was having a conversation with my husband, and I said, what is it? What can I'm right there, but I just cannot. And he's like, well, what about with you and, Tess and some of your other colleagues and your friends in this field are experiencing, where you're talking about being exhausted and hearing these stories all day and the trauma that y'all experience. There has to be a word for that. What's it called? I'm like, there is. It's compassion fatigue, and nobody's really talking about it.
Let's go, husband. Nice job, sir.
Nice job, sir.
There you go. So he's like, do that.
Yeah.
And you're experiencing this and you're crawling. I call it the army crawl, y'all.
Yes.
Like, when I'm like, I'm tired. I can barely, what's going on? And day after day, you're hearing about people's pain and loss and suffering, and you're taking it on. You really are. I got to read this quote. This quote is from In the Kitchen Table Wisdom. So, In Kitchen Table Wisdom by Rachel Naomi Riemann writes, the expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as expecting to be able to walk through water without getting wet.
I love that quote.
I said, what?
That's it.
That's it.
That's
How
the
in the
experience.
world? Yes.
You can. And that's why I came up with the metaphor, it's the common cold of helping professionals.
Yeah.
Because if you are in this profession, doing that work, absorbing other people's trauma, helping them process trauma on a daily basis, helping them with psychosocial stressors, you're prone to that common cold. You're going to catch it. So it's about, how do we build an immunity? How do we protect ourselves from it so that we can still function and do this work from a place of wholeness and not a place of depletion?
Ooh, that's a mic drop. That's some gold nuggets on the floor there. That's so good. There's another quote. This is from you. You did not take an oath of exhaustion, burnout, and compassion fatigue when you chose the helping profession. Like you didn't take an oath to that. You didn't swear to that. Like, I promise to help people, but also be all burnt out and tired and crackly.
Why do we have to wear that as a badge of honor? And why are we? You and I were talking about this the other day. Why do we have to be portrayed and depicted as exhausted and just busted up? I'm thinking about that movie Precious, when Mariah Carey was playing a social worker, and I'm like, we do not look at us.
Wait.
Like, we don't look
we look busted?
Do we look busted and exhausted? We're happy. We're
Don't y'all
excited.
put yes down in the comments. Don't y'all dare.
Don't do it.
So for those, I skip past this and just figuring that maybe everybody knows, but everybody doesn't know what compassion fatigue and burnout and all that. So tell me, I mean, there's so many different terms like secondary trauma and all of that. So go ahead, expert, talk about what that stuff is.
My favorite thing to do. So I like to keep things simple. So I finally broke this down maybe about a year ago. I came up with this concept of the compassion stress cycle. It's actually on my website, because we go through a stress cycle on a daily basis as humans. If you're a human with a pulse, you experience a stress cycle. As helping professionals who are exposed to this trauma, we're going through a process that may be a bit more intense. So I refer to that as a compassion stress cycle. And it starts with the secondary trauma. And that's fixed, because if you're doing this work and you're helping people process their traumas and their pain, that's the secondary trauma you are exposed to. And that secondary trauma is you being exposed to the traumas of the people that you are serving. And these symptoms can mirror that of post-traumatic stress disorder, like the hypervigilance, the flashbacks, the nightmares, the shame, the startled responses, all of those things. And that's fixed. That's the common cold. If you're in this profession, you're exposed to it. Some of us as therapists are seeing 50 clients a week. So you're exposed to it 50 times per week at least. You're in a relationship with 50 different people. That begins this compassion stress cycle. And then if we don't do anything to interrupt it, and we'll talk about that, now the vicarious trauma sets in. And that vicarious trauma is the residual effects of experiencing that trauma on a regular basis. It can be like a tape recorder playing over and over in your mind, and your worldview begins to shift. You begin to wonder, is the world a safe place? Do people really get better? Why am I doing this? Is there a God? You just begin to question all of these things, and it can cause you to lose hope. And then that's the compassion fatigue. Now you're exhausted. You're exhausted from the physical and emotional pain that you've helped people process, and it causes a pronounced change in your ability to have empathy, exhaustion from empathy, and then burnout. Now you're exhausted from just prolonged exposure to unresolved stress. And so what's the difference between compassion fatigue and burnout? As helping professionals, we can experience both. Compassion fatigue is more about exhaustion from empathizing with people, and burnout is more about the exhaustion from excessive workloads.
I love the way you define that. And as you talked, I'm very visual. And so I saw like this tier as you kept talking, like, okay, we can intervene at these levels, but there's a tier and there's a depth that we can go to. And once we reach the burnout, it's really difficult on our physical, on our mental body.
Absolutely.
And so that I've not heard it explained in that way. I really enjoyed the way that you laid it out and explained it and showed us the differences here. So it leads me to a few questions. One is, who can experience this compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, burnout? Who can experience that? It's not just social workers.
No.
And so
No.
we say helping professions. So can you just talk about like some different professions and
Yes.
people that you even work with, you know, in your agency?
Yeah. So I want to be clear. Anybody can experience burnout. Any human with a pulse, whether you're a kid. I know a lot of times people talk about, oh, you're a kid. What stress do you have? Especially in this day and time, kids have a lot of stress.
Yes,
The
they
kids
do.
are busy. They have some activities, but anybody can experience burnout, because burnout is about the prolonged, unresolved exposure to stress. So anybody can experience that. When we're talking about compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma, and secondary trauma and helping professionals, we are talking about the professions that are helping other people process trauma, pain. They are exposed to this on the front line. So yes, social workers, mental health therapists, case managers, educators, people who are in the
Especially,
medical
right?
professions, you know,
Yes.
law enforcement, EMT, police officers, attorneys. I just got an inquiry from a law firm in somewhere, Ohio, I believe, because they're like, yeah, we're exposed to this secondary trauma, and it's these cases that we get and all the trauma that we are expected to help them navigate through. And caregivers, people who are caring for a family member, someone who is terminally ill. So helping professional is so vague.
For sure. So here, I remember working on a case. Y'all know I do expert trauma witness for courts, like federal and state. And I remember the clerk. You wouldn't even think about, you know, the clerk and the stenographer. They were talking about going through vicarious trauma because they hear cases day after day, and they don't have direct contact, but they're listening to the words and they're feeling the emotions within the courtroom. And I remember in a training I was doing to the judges and attorneys that the stenographers and the clerks spoke up and said, I am experiencing these symptoms that Sharise just talked about, you know, sleeplessness and feeling it in our body. And we call that somatic symptoms, but feeling like the muscle tension and the stress, you know, the cortisol and the adrenaline, all of that, it stays in our body if we don't get it out. And so just hearing that was surprising because, you know, I used to be a victim advocate, so I heard case after case after case, especially homicide and sex assault cases. And I did not know, like Sharise said, I did not know what that was called. And I remember walking home one day, coming from the courthouse, listening to a case, you know, my cases all day. And I remember seeing a whole shooting scene happen in front of me, but I didn't see anything. It wasn't really there. And I was you don't look surprised. You're like, that's what happens. Y'all, I saw it all. Somebody shooting. I remember checking my watch to see what time it was because I knew I was going to have to call the police and testify. And then I realized I'm not seeing this at all. I knew I had to take a couple days off. So this is the big question, and I know that you have some hope for us out here, because at the time I didn't know what it was and didn't know how to treat it. I just know I needed to go to bed, take a couple days off. But what would you say, like, let's start with like what organizations can do to support, their workers, folks that supervise. How can they make sure their employees don't burn out? But I would love for you to even speak to, like, I heard you say in our conversation not too long ago that we can build immunity. And I was saying, what? We could build immunity to compassion fatigue? So I want to hear about that.
Yeah. So I'll start. There's a lot there, and I'm excited to talk about this. The first thing is you got to build a foundation. You know, like if you're building a house, you clear everything away and then you build a foundation. So we want to build a foundation of self-awareness and self-compassion, because that's where it starts. Having that awareness of what's happening to you. Like, you were aware in that moment, okay, this isn't normal. I'm not emotionally affected at all. I'm worried about the factual things because I'm going to have to testify. What time is it? Who was around? What color did they have on?
Right.
What time of day? Are there any witnesses? So you have that awareness of how it's impacting you. A lot of people don't. And so some examples of self-awareness is something like that. I do this activity with people that I work with, whether it's individually or if it's in groups in our workshops, is checking in with yourself. How full is your well? Is it at a place where it's overflowing in abundance? Or are you full, or are you on empty? Many of us are walking around on autopilot in zombie mode, and that's our normal. We've learned how to function. It doesn't mean that it's healthy. It just means that we've learned how to function in survival because that trauma is in our body. We know the book, the body keeps the score. It sits on our nervous system unless we metabolize it. So it starts by building that foundation of self-awareness, and then self-compassion, giving ourselves some grace with this work that we do. Understanding that we're human, we're going to make mistakes. It's okay if we have these intense emotions. It's okay if we become a bit apathetic, if we become frustrated, if we become tired. We are human. And then we got to have fun. We got to have hobbies. So that compassion, I can go deeper into it. I want to spend some time talking about parts. It might be hard for many of us to give ourselves grace and to have self-compassion because of some parts that we might be struggling with that aren't healed.
Right.
So if we have like a perfectionist part or a taskmaster part or a judger part that gets triggered when we're working with a client, because we know countertransference and all of those things come up. So that part rises up to the top and makes it hard for us to be kind to ourselves because it's judging us. So there might be some work that we need to do. And as therapists and professionals, we need therapy too. So that's important.
Absolutely.
As we're building that foundation.
Yes.
So we're building this foundation. So once we have this foundation, so now we want to talk about self-soothing. What do we do to cope and to tolerate? I was just watching this video, this black woman, it got circulated in some groups, and I found it interesting. Some people disagreed, some people agreed. I agree. She talked about, I think she calls herself a capacity building coach, and she talked about the problem in the mental health industry is that there's too much focus on coping strategies and not enough focus on building capacity.
Yeah.
And we're too focused on alleviating the pain in the moment, but we got to teach people how to build capacity. And it reminds me of DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, because the focus is on tolerating stress. So how do you tolerate it in that moment? And it's the same thing with compassion fatigue. And I think both are true because we do need the self-soothing strategies like the breath work and the somatic movements to be able to ground ourselves in a moment in order to build that capacity.
Yes. So there were so many nuggets dropped. I'm going to do a little review because this is good stuff, y'all. So first of all, you started off with, what was the first step? The
Building a foundation.
Building the foundation, but it was the check-in. How am I doing? How am I doing? How full is my well? Okay? And I talk a lot about filling your bucket, and as we are compassionate to others, we're pouring it out. So that's the first thing. And I love what you ended up saying with capacity building, because we're a Tylenol, Motrin type of society. I have a pain and I need it to go away immediately instead of saying, what's the source of that pain? My body's talking to me, my mind is talking to me, and I need to dig deeper and not just alleviate the pain, but understand what has caused the pain. And some things we have to accept and live with. And we're like, no, we don't accept anything. Well, some things, because there's a pain, I can accept this and deal with the root of the pain. Then I can alleviate the root of the pain. And if we don't do our work, we're not gonna be able to heal from within. So I love that, and having compassion for ourselves. I love that part too. Giving ourselves permission to not be okay. Sometimes we're not okay. How you doing, girl? I'm good. I'm fine. I'm not. And who are the people around me where I can say, you know what? I'm not feeling that good. This has been a rough day. or this has been a rough week, who is around us that can do that and help us? And unless we're able to be honest and talk about that, we're not going to ever be able to do this dump and get it out. And I love what you said about getting a therapist. Like, get a therapist. What are we holding back for?
Yeah.
That's strong. You know, we're both African American women, and we got them strong grandmamas and strong mamas, and they're like, get up, and I did it, and I carry the world on my back, and we're like, we applaud y'all, but you know what?
That's not my story. I don't want
Listen.
that to be my story. We want to live softer lives.
I want softer landings. I want softer,
Yeah,
you know.
softer landings. I
And
like that.
sometimes we do have to pull and
Yeah.
struggle, but we don't have to pull and struggle all the time. We can thrive and not always be surviving.
Yeah. Everything doesn't have to be so painful.
Doesn't have to be painful. And it did have to be painful for my grandma
Right,
who grew up in segregation
Yes.
and, you know what I mean, and poverty and things, but that's not our story. That's not my baby's story, you know, moving on. And so I really appreciate all of the points that you just made. And it's so different than what we're hearing. We're like, okay, you're tired, then do some self-care. Go jogging. I know you like to run, so I bet she likes to run, not me. Not running.
I hear that all the time.
I'm gonna run down the street and then go in the building. Like, but that's part of your self-care. It's not mine. I'm a singer. I'm gonna sing. That's gonna be part of my self-care. You know, I don't know. Can you sing?
No.
Okay, all right. That's not her.
In the car. I had my concert in the car.
Yes, that's the best concert. So it's not just about replacing your pain and your tiredness with something else to do, or criticize yourself because you're not taking care of yourself. Like, we keep hearing that whole cycle of you're tired because you're not doing self-care. That's not what Sharise just said, and I love that. That is not what you just said. You weren't like, well, you're not doing what you're supposed to. That's not what you said.
No.
Yeah, and that's the message that we keep hearing. So I'm so glad that you got on this compassion fatigue ride and perfected it and became the expert that you are, because we absolutely need to hear this message as helping professionals. So I stumbled upon these couple articles, and I just wanted to ask you about compassion satisfaction, and if you are familiar with that term, and if you know what it is, and if you believe that it also helps with compassion fatigue. I just would like to hear that first, and then I'll give you all a couple readings that I like that I stumbled across. But what do you think about compassion satisfaction?
Yeah, I talk about that a little bit because it is about going from a place of compassion fatigue to compassion satisfaction. But if there's compassion fatigue is here and compassion satisfaction is over here, we have to know the things that are contributing to compassion fatigue in order to get us to compassion satisfaction. So if we know that what's contributing to compassion fatigue is I have a full caseload of people who are struggling with trauma, and I'm not sure that I can handle it. How can I manage this caseload?
Right.
And not just how can I, who can help me with this? You know, and when we talk about what can organizations do, organizations play a role in this. It's not just it doesn't just land on the feet of the individual healer. Like, this is going to take a collective approach to help people heal from this, so that this isn't just like plaguing our profession the way it is. It is the common cold, but that doesn't mean that it has to defeat us. It's a reality, but it doesn't have to be the reality. So in order to get to a place of compassion satisfaction, I think we really have to look at it systemically. So now we're talking about what can organizations do. Obviously trainings, making sure that from the top down, everybody is aware of what is compassion fatigue. What are the signs? The signs of exhaustion, the signs, the physical signs that people are experiencing, the irritability, the numbness, the checking out, the autopilot, the employee who was a top performer who all of a sudden they're checking out. They don't know whether they're coming or going. Making sure that we're paying attention to these marked changes in their behaviors and their emotions. So So I think it starts with that, and then supervision.
Yes.
I think supervision is one of the most underrated tools. I just
Yes.
put something on LinkedIn about that. One of the best, if not the best supervisor I had was when I was in family-based therapy. Shout out to Kirby Oxenrider. He was incredible. He had that balance. He knew when to challenge me. He knew when to support me. He knew when to push me for change. Nice. He knew when to hold me accountable. He was just a great supervisor and a great leader. And to get to that place of compassion satisfaction, you need a good supervisor. And then how is supervision being used? It's not just about being task oriented, right, checking to make sure boxes are checked and cases are completed, or you meeting productivity. Reflective supervision, helping people become more aware and counter transference, and how are things affecting them. Policies, are your policies trauma informed? Right. Wellness policies, all of those things contribute to it.
Absolutely. So I'm so glad you brought up supervision, because having a supervisor that can see the signs that you are fatigued and you are burning out can then tell you have a bunch of PTO that you need to be taking.
Yes,
because
use it.
We store up PTO like a badge of honor.
This is where you can spend it, don't save it. You know what money is like, save it, don't spend it. Spend it, don't save it.
PTO. I have 12,000 hours of PTO. No, nobody's
and we wear it like a badge of honor.
Ain't that a mess? So that's important. Yeah. And that fulfillment. And so compassion satisfaction is the feeling or the pleasure of fulfillment that comes from helping others. We get that because we're in a helping profession, and that's what we wanted to do. That was our career goal. But there is a cost, as well as there is payment to you, and there's filling your cup or filling your bucket right back up. And so I want you to read these, and something that Sharise covered is in one of these articles, and it talks about having supervision and workload and things like that. But that fulfillment and knowing that you are helping someone, that's helping you to fill your cup back up, and it helps you to not burn out in a profession. So here are two articles: The Work Experience of Social Workers, Factors Impacting Compassion, Satisfaction, and Workplace Stress. And there's another article, The Role of Empathy in Burnout, Compassion, Satisfaction, and Secondary Traumatic Stress Among Social Workers. These are wonderful articles. I have my students reading them because we need everybody. Yes, you read that one? That's awesome. You really need to know how you have longevity, but also how you get up and go to your job, not gotta get up and go to your job. Like, you gotta love what you do. I can feel that Sharise loves what she does. I love what I do, and I've been loving it for 20 years now. That's what you want. Important. So I want to get to all the things that you do, because y'all, we didn't even scratch the surface. This woman over here barely sleeps.
I sleep.
She's sleep. I'm messing with you. But she's a founder of Vitamin C Healing. I want you to talk about that. And then we got to spend some time on the SWAG Awards, because that's how we met. I love the SWAG Awards. I came and just wanted to support, and came to a SWAG Award, and I was like, this is beautiful. So let's start with Vitamin C and then go straight into SWAG Awards.
So Vitamin C Healing, I'm not selling vitamins. That's that is the most popular question that I get asked, but I'm not. Even though I do subscribe to a healthy lifestyle, Vitamin C is metaphoric for healing of the whole person, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, with the hope that when people experience my services and me, that they'll get the same experience they do when they take the actual nutrient vitamin C. We take vitamin C when we're sick, and to make sure that we have the nutrients that we need. So that was the purpose of Vitamin C, the company being named Vitamin C Healing. And my first book is titled Vitamin C Healing for the Mind, Body, and Soul. And then it just evolved into a business that focused on helping professionals at risk for compassion fatigue and burnout.
I love the title. And so can they get your book now?
Yeah.
Okay, where can they get their book? Book?
At the website, www.sharicenance.com, and then go to shop, SHOP.
Nice. The link is below. Click, get that book. Okay, talk about the swag awards. I love it.
Oh, the swag awards. I'm so excited.
It's your baby.
It is. It is. So the swag awards again. My husband, he is just, it just comes so naturally.
What's your husband's name?
Bill. Bill Nance.
You're smoking. Okay.
He's going to love this. He's going to eat this stuff.
Yes, Bill.
So he's a creative man. He is a native of Brooklyn, and that's just what he does in his industry, in the film industry. So he's just used to being in a creative space. I complain about things, and he just comes up with the solution. And so initially, I'm like, I see all of these awards ceremony in the city, and they're great. I see people winning these awards who are deserving, but what I didn't see, there were never a lot of social workers on those lists. Like there were, like when I saw you on the Women of Excellence, I'm like, yes, we got a social worker, but why aren't there more?
Yes.
You know, and
we're doing great stuff.
And sometimes I think there's this expectation, well, that's their job. They're supposed to help, and it is, and we do it well. And we know the statistics show when people are appreciated and recognized, burnout decreases, retention increases. It's like, so what can we do? And Bill's like, well, create your own. Y'all are always talking about if you don't have a seat at the table, create your own table. And I'm like, an award ceremony? He's like, yeah. Yes. And so I was like, well, let's just do something small first. Sometimes I want to play it safe. And I said, let's just reach out to organizations and ask them about social workers in their organization that they just want to recognize informally, and we'll just do something on social media. And it just got big. People were excited. I got a list of 21 social workers, and I'm like, okay, we'll recognize somebody every day for the month of March, for National Social Work Month. And then people were excited. They're like, well, what's next, Sharise? And I'm like, I don't know, So we had a small happy hour at the Comfort Inn, and everybody got to know each other. And they're like, we need more. So I'm like, okay. So I go home, and I'm like, Bill, they're telling me we need more. And what's next? And he's like, well, remember that award ceremony? I'm like, so we need something for social workers. What will we call it? And he's like, swag. And I'm like, swag? He's like, social worker appreciation of greatness. I'm like, oh my God. That is, I was like, do you realize what you just like, and he just did it so effortlessly. I'm like, don't give anybody else these secrets. But yeah, and I'm like, oh my God, I think we got something. And so this was in 2019. So this was pre-COVID. So I'm like, okay, let's plan something for next year, because you need a year to plan. I had somebody, shout out to Deanna Rojas. She's like, this is great, but don't plan anything big without a committee. And I'm like, you're right, because I'll try to take it on and do it myself. There's no way I could do something like this by myself. Shout out to my committee. Yes. They are amazing in helping me. They're behind the scenes. We're meeting every month. They're giving me ideas, and they're sometimes help talking me, off the ledge and all of those things. But in 2019, we started planning for the inaugural ceremony in 2020, and
we know what happened in 2020.
Yeah, we're excited. We're getting sponsors. Pitt Social Work, School of Social Work, we're the first ones to commit. They've been extremely supportive from the beginning.
That's great.
When it was just a vision. And then 2 weeks before the ceremony was to be held, we got shut down. I'm like, oh my goodness, this cannot be happening. Whoa. I couldn't believe it. And people were asking me, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I've never lived through a pandemic before. This is new to me. We're going to have it at some point, and we rescheduled it to July. I don't know why, but we ended up having it the following year in 2021 as a virtual event, but it was still successful. People had a good time. We had it set up to where they could have their online virtual breakout groups, like networking, virtual networking. And then we had our first in-person event in 2022, and that's where I met you.
That's where I came.
At the Hosanna House, and it was amazing. And I'm like, we need a keynote speaker for the next year. And everybody just kept saying, oh my God, Dr. Toy, Dr. Toy. I'm like, okay, well, she is it. And Dr. Toy has been our keynote speaker for the past 3 years. I hope we can keep her forever.
It's so
because
fun.
She is amazing. And that's like, when we send out our post post ceremony surveys, they're like, bring back Dr. Toy. So I'm like, hey, y'all got it. And I'm all
you got
for
me
it.
blushing. It's so fun.
Yeah.
And the way we met, I came just to support. I said, someone's doing a social work award? Like, this is amazing. I remember talking to my husband. The husbands are winning. Shout
Yeah.
out to Cornell.
Yeah, they are.
And he's like, this is beautiful. And we're like, let's go. Let's go and support. And I went and I was like, look at how many people. She's so modest. This thing packs out and sells out huge rooms. Not like selling out with just 20 seats. I'm talking about huge rooms.
We're
and
at
she's
216 this year.
It's unreal. Yeah. And it really should be sold out. It's a beautiful event. It's not just even giving awards. It's well done. Like the food is good. She had ice cream stations. I was like, I love ice cream.
Me too.
Like it's just so, and it's beautifully decorated, and people feel so good. They get all dressed up and snatched and winning their awards. And these people, I don't know where you find these social workers. They are wonderful, beautiful people and doing some serious social work in the city and beyond, and it's just been wonderful. I've been coming every year, and I'm loving it. Like, I love doing a keynote. It's so much fun. I was like, what am I going to do this year? Like, she lets me just go off and be creative, and it's so much fun. But I love speaking to my colleagues and saying, I'm so impressed with what y'all are doing. I'm so happy that they're being recognized, and we needed something like this. So I totally agree, and I'm so glad that you and Bob did it and got the swag. Bill, I'm sorry, Bill. I don't know why I called him Bob just now. Sorry, Bill. But I love the fact that you came up with the swag and what it stands for. It's just beautiful. So I want to talk about just a couple things I'd like to leave folks with. First of all, I want them to know how they can contribute to swag. It's already sold out all the time. So I don't know if you're ever going to get in, but how can they continue? Like if someone's like, I love that, that's beautiful, I want to contribute, how can they do that?
Well, there's a few ways. So nominations. So we open up the nominations pretty early because I'm a big planner. I like to give people time. So the nominations typically open September 1st. And so you can go to the SWAG website, www.theswagawards.com, and nominate a social worker in the greater Pittsburgh region. Long as they live within 20 miles of Pittsburgh, you can nominate them. We plan to expand, but not quite yet. And then donations. We are accepting donations around the clock. We do have a SWAG fundraiser happy hour that is coming up on Thursday, March 6th. And people have an opportunity to win Be Well baskets. You can win training sessions with O.J. Macklin. You can win a Restore Day. You can win services from Steam Spa. You can win a massage. I mean, there's just Wigginton candles, jewelry by a little bit, Nikki's Magic Wand.
Yes.
There's just so much that you can win with a $25 donation. And each ticket gets you a donation into the raffle, www.theswagawards.com/swag support. You'll see all of that on the website, and you can donate all year round. All of the proceeds go to maintaining the SWAG Awards, because maintaining the SWAG Awards is not cheap.
It costs money.
I mean, just hosting a website, if we want to start there. And also, we want to be in a position to host students so that students don't have to pay. I know what it's like being a student. We don't always have the extra disposable income to attend events like this, it's important for students to experience events like this, so they get to see the positive side of social work. So that's where the proceeds are going to.
It's wonderful. My students have been coming. Shout out to the BASW students. Thank y'all for supporting. They're coming again this year, and so my Dean Farmer has set aside a few tickets for students, and they grabbed them up fast. So,
yeah, I see that.
Sorry, there's no more.
Yeah, like, and we're totally at capacity. Like, we don't even have a ticket left. Like, we are. So what I will say, if you enter that raffle, there is a chance to win a ticket to the SWAG Awards.
Good. I hope to see y'all there. Yeah. I will be bringing the keynote Again, I don't listen. I'm not even telling y'all nothing
Yeah.
about what I'm going to say, but it's going to be some fun.
I can't wait.
So we are at the end, but I want you to leave the audience. I mean, I feel like you already gave so many nuggets and so many jewels. Leave them with a word. Like, talk to our students, but also talk to folks in the helping profession. Is there anything you want to leave them with? Just one more nugget, boom, one more in the bucket, and you're out of here.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you for the work that you do in this field. I know that is not often told to us a lot or even enough, but thank you for your hard work. I know that this work isn't easy, and it can feel thankless, and it can be rewarding at times. And I want to leave you with being a sustainable healer. And so sustaining others is a beautiful gift. Sustaining yourself is a responsibility.
Yes. Don't she make you feel good when she talks? I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for instilling the hope and the knowledge and coming past the podcast and dropping all these nuggets. We need shovels and buckets. We got to pick up all these gold nuggets that you dropped around here.
Shovels and buckets.
Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your support, everyone. Don't forget, click down below, ask a therapist, and I will answer your questions. If I answer your questions on the podcast, you get a free Starbucks gift card. Click below, get her book. There's more wisdom. There's more knowledge that she dropped in the book. Click that link below. Check out the website and just see how you can get involved with Swag Awards and how you can also just support what this beautiful woman inside and out is doing. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. Sharise, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Man, it's been my pleasure. We could sit here and talk all afternoon, swear. Like, it's so much fun. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing Healing Overflow with Dr. Toy podcast. Because every time you share, you're sharing it with other people, and your healing is overflowing onto others. So thank you so much, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.